Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
It's dead week,
It is.
which is vacation week.
Correct.
I assume you're going on vacation too.
I'm not going anywhere on vacation, but it was a 3-day work week, yes.
There we go.
4-day week.
We're going to some big fancy resort up in Joplin, Missouri. It's called Big Cedar, and it's awesome. I mean, we love it. We go there about once a year.
Nice.
But this is the first year that like my son's 6, so he gets to really enjoy and take it in, and we'll be making memories to where like previously he's kind of been like, where are we?
Right.
So the Silver Dollar City, which is the big amusement park. It might be the biggest one in America. I don't know. It's pretty big. It's super cool. It's like old timey. Everybody's dressed up like it's the 20s or 30s or
Nice.
something. It's pretty fun. Yeah. So it's gonna be a fun week. So just knocking stuff out because it is now Monday. We're recording an extra episode. If you guys don't
call
know,
back
and
up.
you don't, because the Army stole a week away from us, and then we get some extra time here. So it's nice to get some stuff done really early in the week and then just disappear. In fact, I might try to make this a game plan more than once a year.
Yeah. We'll probably need to get ahead because I do have a vacation week. So we may
There we go. That's what we're doing right now. Trying to
get ahead rather than catch up. Be
Yes.
smart for once.
Level up. So couple things. One, I talked last week, which I think this will come out in order. It should, about getting into the Motion AI scheduler, and loved it. I loved it so much that apparently I let it go into the, pay a bunch of money. They charged me for a year, which is great. I didn't turn it off, but I'm pretty committed to it. The only thing I don't love is that it's hard to set like an exact date and time for like, I have an appointment at 12. I can't figure that out exactly. I have to go through and manipulate the schedule, but I'm sure it's just something I'm missing because it's pretty stinking smart.
Right.
And I've gotten so much more stuff done. I quit forgetting so much. I'm very forgetful. So it's been pretty neat. The other thing, though, that was just a refresh from the last level up. My true level up is I started doing the coffee with Coach Chambo on Twitter and YouTube, the live talks. And you talk about having to sharpen your football knowledge. You can't go live on the internet and not know what you're talking about.
True story.
And be able to think on the fly. Like we talk on here, but I can really just lean on you when I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Hey, Joe, tell me something that 18 or whatever years of experience will teach you. So going live by myself has been pretty. In fact, I was like, oh, I don't know that I know enough about GT Counter to go talk about GT Counter or whatever. So it's been pretty neat. First interactions today with the live chat. And that was, you got to think on your feet, right?
Yep.
And that was pretty neat. So,
yeah, it's always, the live aspect is good because you're going to, I have to clear out my calendar because I just uploaded my stuff and it went into the wrong day. Live is always interesting. The interesting thing about live is like whether or not you have people there. So it's always hit and miss on people being there because what a lot of people, unless you're a really, really huge audience,
right.
It's very difficult to get people to jump on live in any significant numbers. And then only about 10% of people will actually interact. So if you have 10 people, you might have one who is going to comment or something. So that's part of being live. And then, yeah, if you get somebody who, one of the things that used to happen in our webinars, not so much, which was a more planned environment, we'd have 200, 300, 400, 500 people on a webinar, and you would get somebody who decided that they were going to co-opt the chat room to make it their webinar, right? And so that was always an interesting thing with, and you get the, hey, I've got a template for that. Or, hey, can you send that to me, coach? Me too, me too, me too, me too, me too, me too. And it's like, I'm sitting here, look, I paid a lot of money to advertise to get y'all into this webinar.
Some guys stealing the thunder.
Some guys are out here giving away his template, which may or may not be any good, So yeah, live is always interesting. I used to do more live, and I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it's been...
Think about Facebook. I don't know about Twitter and everything, but Facebook Live it lasts forever. That unless you delete it.
Yeah,
They
Twitter's
will
on
get a
there,
lot more.
YouTube stays up, like,
Yeah,
they're all
they will get a lot more views after the fact than they get actually live. So, and I was looking at the numbers. Somebody who's got a much larger audience that this was somebody with a very, very large audience, millions of people, following their page and stuff. And it was like, you might get 1,000 or 2,000 people on the live and 100,000 views on the live at the end of the day.
right. Yeah, it's been pretty eye-opening, just kinda see I'm pretty excited 'cause it's only, like, my 4th day or something is today, and it is pretty neat to getting that interaction, right? I mean, I think YouTube, they're not doing very good because it's a brand new page, but Twitter's pretty neat. Like, I've seen people jump in 50, 100 viewers or whatever, and then, like, finally someone spoke up. So, yeah, it's good, though. So, it's good for me. Good to be a better coach because that's what coaching on the field is, right? I'm literally sitting in front of players telling them. Now, less stump the chump because the player's not gonna be like, "Oh, yeah, coach, well, now I have the marker in my hand. Let me be the
Right.
last one with the marker. Let me go throw you something impossible, some impossible situation." Um, so you get to eradicate stump the chump, but you still need to know what the hell you're talking about. I talk about that in my leadership series all the time, right? And the articles I've been writing is you have part of be no do is the Army's leadership model, and the no portion is very big for a reason. If you don't know what the hell you're talking about, it doesn't matter if you're the best human on earth, people won't follow you. So yeah,
Cool.
it's good. What's your level up, sir?
Well, I have two, I'd say. One was I had a weightlifting competition this weekend, so didn't get, my training has not been great, but I totaled and I got my medal. So I added another medal to the.
Hey,
I think it's this one. I think it's that one.
things are changing.
Yeah, new look on them too. 2024 OEC. So that was good. But I picked up a book, and it's funny because my wife walked in and saw the book sitting on my office desk, and was like, "You picking up tennis?" And I was like, "It's called The Inner Game of Tennis," and it's a well-known sports psychology type of book. In The Inner Game of Tennis, it's actually written in 1974, Timothy Galway, and it's just about the mindset of the approach to fixing your tennis swing, apparently, in your tennis game. But that approach then translates. I see a lot of, and you read the Driven book by Douglas Brockman, and like there's a lot of that idea of he calls it self one and self two, and it's the idea that basically the human body is a miracle, and like you can just do stuff pretty well if you just get out of your own way. Obviously, like any of us who have ever tried, I've never played tennis at any sort of level, but anybody who's ever played golf, it's like if you could just relax and swing the club, you'd be so much better than, all right, I got to do slide here and the hip here, it's foot here, and the hand here and here, and you're thinking about 10 million different things, and then you hit it, and you're like, God, I suck at this, and I hate it so much, and it's like that's what's ruining your golf game to an extent. Same idea in tennis, and it's the same idea. So it's funny because my wife was like, she sees Inner Game of Tennis on my desk and is like, and we are members of a tennis club, but we are not tennis people. And we've talked about it. And so she was like, are we doing tennis? And I was like, nope. And I pointed to it. Pete Carroll wrote the foreword. So I was like, no, see. She's like, okay. I was like, yeah. So very good book. I do absolutely recommend it if you have anything that you are. I've been using it with weightlifting, using that idea with just, going up and lifting the weight rather than thinking about 10,000 different cues. And but also a lot of other things. I mean, you just think about the things that you do that you don't think about. Like everybody has the experience of driving home from work and being like, how did I get here?
Right.
Because you just your body, your mind, your whatever subconscious knows how to get home. It's done it so many times, and you sit there and make the grocery list in your head and think about practice and think about what you need to do when you get home, what you're going to cook for dinner, and all these sorts of things, and you're home. And you got home just fine. There was no danger. It's a little bit scary that you weren't paying attention, but you got home just fine. And it's kind of like, what are all the things that you could be doing that you could do if you didn't have to think about it? And then I look at it from a coach standpoint of how much am I how much is my overcoaching these kids ruining their ability to play the game?
Right.
We have kids that have just meltdowns in a game, and it's like, it's just go out there and play. We say just go out there and play, but do we, obviously you don't just go out there and not coach them, but there's a fine line of overcoaching.
For sure.
Yeah, good book. Check it out. Short book.
Again?
Inner Game of Tennis.
Inner Game of Tennis.
There it is.
Oh,
backwards, but
very simple cover. I like it.
It is very simple cover, and it is only 134 pages. So short read. Pick it up. Check it out. That's a good one.
It's on the list. I really have enjoyed just reading these. I don't know if you call them self-help books or like.
It would probably fall into a self-help. The classic guide to the mental side of peak performance. So this was rewritten in 2010, but it was originally written in 1974, which is funny because, one of the things he talks about in there, I don't know anything about tennis, but one of the things he talks about there in the 2010 version is all of these things that because a lot of it is, there's a letting your body learn these things. And the idea is that, okay, the way that somebody is teaching how to do a forehand in tennis, it wasn't always that way. Somebody figured it out. And so somebody just went out there and played tennis and let their body learn how to play tennis better. And then was like, okay, I do thing. Now let me look at thing and break down the steps so that I can teach somebody else how to do thing. And it's funny because, he talks about in this book, and there's, from 1974 to however much, was that 36 years. He talks about all of the standard way to hit a forehand in 1974 that everybody was being taught is not the way that you do it, that is being taught now, because some people said, I'm not going to do it that way, and just found a better way. And that's kind of, we look at that in football, and the way that you might block something. We do a lot of problem solving as coaches. The way that we might teach blocking, we might teach a play. We do problem solving because this isn't working the way that I want it to, and then it becomes the way that we do it. If we're willing to do that, and if we're not willing to do that, then we never improve on it.
It's good. I'll have to get the book and read it myself.
Good book.
Today we're talking about reading. Actually, we're talking about defending reads. We're going to talk defending quarterback read plays. So zone read or even gap scheme read, whatever you guys are on offense are putting out these days to where your quarterback has another option to run the football behind the main play. We're going to discuss how to defend that, as we both are OCs now and we have to remember what defense is like. Before we do that, let's pay the bills.
Yeah, go to joedanielfootball.com, go to joedanielfootball.com/rules, or you can just go to the homepage, should still be there, but joedanielfootball.com/rules to get 40 coach simple rules for football coaches who want to win more games. That it has in there just 40 tips, tricks, tactics, strategies that are going to win you a game. One of those in there is probably going to win a game for you. There's things like the Coach Simple philosophy, breaking down different pieces of that, ask a leverage principle. There are what I think is probably the most valuable part of it, which is the most easily accessible and applicable quickly, is the non-negotiables for each position. These are the things the one thing that every player at that position must be able to do, and that you as a position coach, if I tell my position coach, defensive line coach, the non-negotiable is squeezing a down block. Well, if you don't have 90% of those guys squeezing 90% of down blocks, you better not be running around hoops and monkey rolling, and you better not be wasting time over there. You better not be even working on pass rush moves. You need to get these guys to squeeze a down block. Yeah, period. It's non-negotiable. And what I like about the non-negotiables is that most, with the exception of a couple, the free safety being probably the biggest one, but even that it's harder to get kids to do, but it doesn't take talent. It's not like you have to get there and you have to get down the field in 1.3 seconds. You have to run downhill and not go backwards on a run play. But I try to put the non-negotiables in a context of non-negotiables need to be things that don't require talent. It requires no talent to squeeze a down block, right? He goes down, you go down with him. Everybody can do that. And it naturally creates that wrong arm situation, naturally creates that spill. So those are really, really important things to have for each position. So go in there, check it out at joedanielfootball.com/rules.
Awesome. Let's jump right into questions here. Part 1, what are quarterback read plays?
Well, anything where the quarterback has the option to keep it and he's reading a defender. The old option mantra was if we can't block him, read him. And, that goes back to triple option. Of course, we're talking more of the spread option, gun read plays, I assume, and not split back veer. But anything where the rules, the funny thing about this is that the rules don't change from a wing T double option to split back veer to basic, Urban Meyer zone read at Utah to, and Rich Rod and Chip Kelly and these, the originals of the zone read. The rules don't change for that, and the rules don't change when it becomes an RPO. The rules don't change in any of those as far as defending it. And really, as far as the offense goes, the rules aren't that different. You can make them sound different if you want to, but these are all just extensions of the idea of if you can't block him, read him. You go the RPO. We Lynn Shackelford talked about it, and I think it's a great reason for RPOs was he couldn't get his guys to climb to the second level to block the linebacker on inside zone, and so he reads the backside linebacker. And if the backside linebacker fills, you throw the ball behind him. It's like, okay, I can't block him, read him. That's a solution to a problem. So anything where the quarterback is reading, and we had James Vint on, who's James Vint read everybody on the field. Anybody who's the guy makes a tackle, read him on the next play, right? It's not that simple, but you read a free safety, you read anybody. And that idea of I'm going to make you wrong. Wing T had that principle even without the option. Wing T goes back to putting a player, we've talked about it already, putting a player in conflict. The strong safety is in conflict. If he comes up to defend the run, we would run the waggle and throw behind him or run the keep pass or whatever. And so, or the 3-tech with the trap and everything. So that's what we call predictive play calling, based on the guy that, and we've talked about Rick Stewart. Tell me the number of the guy that made the tackle, and he's memorized the defense, and whichever number he hears, he knows that guy made the tackle. So we're going to attack him next play and put him in conflict. In the case of read plays, it is post snap play calling, which is I'm going to run this play, and as the play develops, I'm going to figure out where it needs to go. Now, all passes fall into that category to an extent. Quick game less than 5-step drop necessarily, but and of course as you continue to expand, if you go into run and shoot choice routes and stuff, now we have a lot of post snap options, which is an option play as well. So we look at that as post snap play calling, which is when the ball, I don't know who's going to get the ball, you tell me. You're talking to the defense. You tell me who's going to get the ball. If that defensive end is going to squeeze down and attack the dive, then the quarterback's going to keep it. If that defensive end is going to squat for the quarterback, then the dive's going to keep it. This actually fits really good into, which I'll be recording at the beginning of next week, is our July film room, which is on running zone read. And I'll be sharing a lot of our film because we've run a lot of zone read the last couple of years. And the different reads that we have, which is interesting for this episode, is because, for us, the quarterback was the big threat. That's the one that nobody wants to let keep the ball. And we had to get creative because we want him to keep the ball. So sometimes you have to dictate that.
People keep taking it away.
Yeah. Sometimes, we just are, all right, now we got it. So now I want him to have the ball. So I'm going to go back to, I'll block the read and I'll lose one blocker for the dive or the zone run because I want the quarterback to keep it. So I'll go block the read and just tell the quarterback to keep it. But yeah, anything where we're letting the defense make the decision for us is a read play.
I think a lot of people start their initiated into football with that zone read play, just reading the backside defensive end. And my current mantra, and I'm going to run with it, but make him wrong, right? I have appreciated in my years, I've learned ways to do that with more people, reading a 1-tech, right? Or a B-gap defender maybe that's on the line. If you're getting a tight front, right? You're getting 4 eyes. Now we're going to read him. Yes, he's still the defensive end, but we know that he's not the C gap defensive end. So the ability to pull any run and go right back up the backside B gap. Once you realize that you can truly read anyone and keep it to run, just like you can do an RPO, I think it quickly expands your play calling abilities. And it opens up the world to all these read plays are there for a reason, because I can keep one play. We talk about, coach simple, play fast, win. I can just put in inside zone, and now I can read 6 guys on the backside of it, and I have now 7 run plays. Mm-hmm. So, not to mention all of the abilities to throw the ball back there as well. So, but yeah, I think read plays, or quarterback read plays specifically, leaning more towards quarterback running with it here, less of the RPOs, because that's a different conversation. But taking away those backside defensive end reads or linebacker reads, whatever, with the quarterback trying to keep it and run the ball, that's where we're going to focus today. So that actually just jumps right into the second question. Why is it important to have a plan to stop these read plays?
Yeah, when Jim Reed who again I think is one of the greatest recruiters, as far as just be a great person and willing to share and willing to do so much. Jim Reed, when he was the defensive coordinator at UVA, came down multiple times and just did clinics, like 3-hour clinics. And our office was off the wrestling room. So, he's coming down in the winter and the wrestling room gets to be 100 degrees. The office is not much cooler because it's, that's the heat's coming in. And I mean, Jim Reed is just, he's up there talking for 3 hours on a whiteboard and stripping off layers of clothing as it gets hotter and hotter and hotter, but he just keeps on going. And one of those was where I got the line where they're going and meet them on the way. Another was where Jim gave us the 3 ways, the rule, always have 3 ways to defend zone read at a time when everybody was running zone read and, in the ACC. And with the exception of Georgia Tech, who wasn't running zone read, they were running, read. They were running option, triple option. And so he talked about that and essentially dictating who you want to have the ball is the key. And then where do you want to allow them to go? And so that is the 2 parts of that play, having the ability to dictate who you want to have the ball, who you want to be responsible for each potential ball carrier, and where you want to allow them to go. So in other words, I can set it up so that you can't bounce the football out the front side. That if you give, I'm not going to allow him to bounce the football. I can set it up so that, as you said, you can't read in our zone blocking rules. This is what the tight front was the reason that we came up with this. We run what's called a zone read minus. So our blocking rules are 0, 1, 2, 3 on the front side. The center blocks the 0, the guard blocks the 1, the tackle blocks the 2, the tight end, wing, whoever blocks the 3. And we just count. Center calls out, that's the 0. Next guy's the 1, next guy's the 2. Now, it actually correlates to what gap they're most likely to defend, but that makes the backside guy the 1. The next guy over backside is the guard 1. The next guy over is the 2. The next guy over is the 3. Well, the 3 is always the read in that. And so when we would get a tight front, the 3 would be the overhang.
Right.
And we would have to base the 2, and then it's a one-on-one deal. And if the 2 was really good, that 4-eye, we're not getting what we want because the 4-eye can crash from that inside position and squeeze, and the quarterback is left with the 3 squatting. And so we were never getting, because the 3 has no reason to come down in a 3-4 front. Because the 2 is there. And so in a 3-4 front, we were never getting the look that we wanted. And plus, if you had a 4 and an overhang, that was always an automatic give because 2 is an automatic give. So we put in zone read minus, which was we're going to subtract 1 from the read. So no longer is the read the 3, the read is the 2. The tackle arcs to block out the defensive end or the outside backer, and we read the 4-eye. The 4-eye crashes, we give in. If not, we keep it and take off. And then we just had to teach the guard not to get into on a minus play, not to get into a combo with the center, to just go ahead and go up to that backer. It's going to essentially ISO on him. So that front dictates, the defensively, then you look at that and you go, okay, I can get into a 4-eye front and I can dictate that you are either going to give the ball, what I want. Generally the quarterback is one of the best athletes in the game, right? In most teams today.
Yeah,
And I
especially
know,
small school ball, right?
yeah, and I know for teams playing us, even though we had a great running back, you still didn't want. And probably one of the things that made the running back so good was the threat of the quarterback. But teams don't want the quarterback carrying the ball, and most of the time, I don't want the quarterback carrying the ball. It's very rare. I can think of like one school that we played where the running back was the guy, and it was like, okay, how do we get the ball out of his hands? Like, let the quarterback keep it. We'll sort that out because he's not the guy. So then I can dictate that either you're going, from that front. If I'm a 3-4, I can dictate that either you're going to give. Now you keep it, and now it's a one-on-one matchup. So I'll go ahead and tell you that there are times when he was just a better athlete and said, I can beat this guy around the corner. I can outrun this guy. And so that guy would get read by alignment and athleticism. And that happens too. It's not just, this game isn't actually played on a chalkboard. That's the reality. So we need to have ways to get the ball, to dictate who's going to get the football. We need to, and so that would be, again, by front in that case. Now in our 4-2, we would just either let the defensive end crash on the read, and he comes down the field, comes down the line of scrimmage, and he tackles the dive back. And we need the will linebacker to loop for the quarterback to gap exchange that, to give us that. And as long as we work on that, we feel like we're pretty good about it. Or if we've got a good athletic defensive end, and as we've talked about, we like to take the guy that loses the safety battle, and he becomes the weak side defensive end. Well, in that case, if we have a zone read heavy schedule, we're in good shape, because now I'll just Q tag. We call it a Q tag, where we call our defense and then tag Q on the end, and that tells the defensive end to squat for quarterback. And everybody just fills their normal gaps, but he's not going to bend down the line of scrimmage as he would normally. So we want to dictate in that way with a Q tag. We can also use blitzes. We can use, for example, we wouldn't Q tag it, but we can run a smoke weak X, where the strong safety is now going to come into the B gap. That's actually going to give us a bonus because we can actually have the will and the end be around for the quarterback, as long as there's no pitch relationship. You add in a pitch guy.
Now you're blitz peeling, or you better have a plan.
You have to have a plan for the pitch guy. And what we would do is we would be in a cover 0. So if you tried to do, the cowboy loop, or you tried to do a bubble as your pitch, as an RPO pitch, now it's a cover 0. So we kind of take care of that. We have a plan for it. We'd also do things where I might Q tag it, but I want to make sure that it's not going front side. And so I would have the 3-tech slam up the field. No concern about anything. This was one from Jim. The 3-tech is not trying to do anything but slam straight up the field so that it cannot bounce, and that it's contained now to a gap back. So I'm playing for your quarterback to give, and then that way my guy, my backside linebacker can't jump for front side to give me numbers there. So I'm just going to cut him off from going front side so that my backside linebacker can stay for quarterback and still play the read. So you need to have 3 ways or more, generally 3, to defend it, so that you can dictate who's getting the ball, where the ball is going, etc. And then, of course, you have things like power read. And in power read, it's a front side read. And you need to be able to dictate, in that case, the quarterback is almost always keeping on power read. Nobody runs power read to run the sweep. They might do a jet read to run the sweep, but almost nobody's running the power read to run the sweep. They will if they have to. And it's funny because the read doesn't work out in their favor, because you have to beat the block. If they give the sweep, I still have my forced player out there. It's like he's got to beat a block, but I got a free safety. Da 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 da. But if I play power correctly, the quarterback should keep it, and I've got to have the gap exchange. But you've got numbers. That's why it's a good play. Is because the defensive end is going to play it absolutely perfectly, and you're going to be dead wrong. And it's just, it's a really good play when it's executed well. The only other read play that I see much of from the gun, and not a whole lot of, there's 2 more. One is the jet read, the midline jet read, where we're going to run jet, but we're going to read, say, a 3 technique or something like that, or a 1 tech, and not block him. He's going to chase the jet, and we're going to replace right at the middle. That's good for really good 3 techs and really good defensive linemen that are really aggressive and are going to chase that, because then you don't have to block the 3 tech, which is great. And then the other is reading off the backside of a GT counter, which is probably one of the tougher things, because again, if you add in a pitch relationship, we're in trouble, because if we play it right, assuming we don't have a Q tag on, we're going to follow the puller with the defensive end, and then the backside linebacker, let's say it's a 4-2-5, the backside linebacker has a pulling guard, so the defensive end follows his tackle going down inside, normal key read. The will linebacker follows his guard pull, looking for first open door, and we're left with free safety and overhang safety, and that's it. So the only way to truly defend it is to Q tag it. And so that can be a really dangerous play. And I've always been surprised not to see more of it. It must be more difficult to run than it seems. But
this being my first year on the offensive side, and I want to run GT counter a lot, and that was one of my first issues, is like, how the hell do we block that backside defensive end, especially with a 4 front? With a 3 front, he's generally going to be a 4, a 4-eye, even a 5. And I've done some videos over this, but I'm going to let my center block back. And I know people say he can't ever get there, but if he chases it down, if he chases the pull,
he can definitely get to a 4. Yeah,
we're running him right into the center's block, so we're golden. But if you go a 4 front and I'm trying to do that, he's an unblocked man. So you really have to read him. Yeah, because the center's going to. I mean, yeah, the center's going to pick up either the 1, or if you're running it weak, he's going to pick up a 3.
So the only way you can do it really is to bring in an H-back or to read him.
Right. And so read becomes the play, right? And then once I got there, I was like, there's not a lot of people out here. And if I can use any motion at all to move that outside backer,
yeah,
maybe we're going to the house. So
yeah, and you have to be able to. So with a team like us, you would be good. With a vast majority of teams, and that's, again, football's a tough game. There's a play that kind of breaks us, right? And it's like, okay, we got to figure out what to do with this. Most teams are going to have that guy in too tight. They're going to apex him. So you're going to need to run a bubble read off of that. But I would read that by alignment. I would just say, if that guy's tight, go ahead and throw the bubble. Don't even, you know what I mean? Don't read anything else, throw the bubble until we get that guy out of there. And then we can go back to the GT read. Yeah. But really, at first, we're just going to throw bubbles until you get your linebacker out of the box, your outside linebacker out of the box.
Yep, I love it. The 3 ways to defeat everything is something, I don't remember if I took it from you or Coach Ridley used to talk to me all the time about. Get their 5 best run and 5 best pass and have a plan to stop all of them, especially if your initial plan goes wrong, right? So have another way. And I don't remember if I got 3 ways from him or you, but definitely something, even as my early time as a DC, I tried to have 3 ways to beat everything. And the gap exchange was the first one we had to put in for read teams, because if I can just make you, and look, I wasn't very good as a DC back then, so I probably didn't even call him at the right times, but the odds were they were going to be reading. And so if I could make him crash, we could start playing a little bit of dictation, gave us a little bit better chance to win some games. So
we installed the Bullet C in a zone read game out of the 4-2-5, one of our first years running it. And it was essentially, we would cut the defensive weak side end into the, and of course, when I say weak side, we would have to adjust the alignment based on the set of the back, and then we would, for a gun read, and then we would cut the weak side end into B gap, and so that would be a keep read if he's reading the defensive end, but then the will backer is blitzing C gap, so he keeps it and he's in the quarterback's face, and that worked great for us. And that was actually a lever pull in game. We installed it the first time we did it. It wasn't part of the original package.
I had another question. It was a read question.
It was a good one.
It was a super good one.
Yeah.
Well, I guess it wasn't important enough. It's something about moving players. It was a blitz, maybe. Oh, so I realize that we generally do not box with our ends, right? I'm never asking my big guy to be force, because you're just trying to put yourself in a bad situation. But you talked about running a 3 tech upfield which essentially you make him the force to that side. So is there a way that you buy a linebacker back by forcing with the defensive end? Maybe we give him that, not a Q tag, but maybe just a box call. Hey, you're going to get upfield. You're going to set the edge so it doesn't bounce. And now our linebackers can play a gap backwards. Anytime does that become an option?
Ricky Kuhn, who's defense coordinator at Southeast Missouri at SEMO, Ricky used to have a mesh tag where he would tell the defensive end to just go straight at the mesh.
Yes.
And, a million miles an hour. And it's funny because option guys will always say, well, if you do that, you're making it easy on us, right? What makes it hard is to squat and to feather and to not make the read easy.
Play patient, right?
But if you do that once every 5 times that they run the play, and it's like, oh my God, it's like, the guy's been sitting, the guy's been squeezing, whatever. Now he just comes at you. It's like, well, yeah, on paper, like option guys, offensive guys are always, you do that to us. It's like, I'm not doing it to you. I'm doing it to your 17-year-old quarterback
who's gotten lazy. He's like playing outfielder, right?
Right.
So,
he's, I'm doing it to him, not you. Him. Coaches get so confused about this. And the funny thing is, we don't get confused about attacking other people, right? We're like, oh, well, I don't have to beat the coach. I got to beat the player on the field. But then at the same time, we treat it like, well, they don't have to beat me. They have to beat the player on the, like the player on the field is going to do what I told him to do. And it's like, no. Your kid's 16, just like their kid. So it's not force. It's a tag to give a different look, because force is still responsible for the pitch, right? I mean, he's still responsible for the pitch, which in a lot of this becomes the bubble. And a lot of what we're talking about is a bubble or even a mini curl or something like that. He's responsible for that. He's responsible for the perimeter. That's your weak safety, strong safety, unless you blitz them in a cover zero situation. So you're not changing the force, but you can give them a different technique. You can have them, we've had an L tag or a Q tag where he just loops and steps outside. We've had we've tried to feather with the right kids, which is basically to read the reader, essentially, and be patient with it. It's easier if you have, a freak. It's pretty difficult with your average kid. So it's just, that's something you use for one specific kid. If I had a defensive end that was as good an athlete as your quarterback, that's where I could use that. I don't, probably, unless I put my quarterback in at defensive end. So yeah, you can do it, but like I said, we've used the mesh tag, the Q tag. You could have a jet tag, which is essentially, a jet tag is a pass rush tag. So that's essentially what you're talking about, is defensive end speed rushing off the edge. Or just put in a different defensive end and don't tell him anything and put in a really fast kid and say, go nuts.
That's right. That's the answer.
Yeah. Don't tag him.
Last part here, and I know we've already, just like always, we've already dabbled in this some, but how do we game plan to defeat these quarterback read plays? So what are we looking for, or how do we just take our base and modify it to do what we want to do?
So it goes back to the rule of 3. What is there? I say 3 runs, 3 passes. When I say 3 runs and 3 passes, Kenny's probably on the same train of thought, I would guess, just based on practice time and stuff, is really, I'm going to prepare you as a player to stop their 3 best. I'm going to prepare us as coaches to stop 2 more. That I'm not going to have calls in for it. I'm not going to work it a lot. And when I say 3 runs and 3 passes, that doesn't mean we don't ever run anything else. It's just the same 3 runs and 3 passes. That's the 3 things that we're going to focus on. And we're going to have multiple ways to stop them, to take them away. We're going to make blitz calls that take those top plays away. We're going to have alignment rules for those top formations, or make sure we know how to align to those top formations. But we'll still, run some other stuff that we've seen on film just to make sure we fit it all. So, but we're really going to focus 3 runs, 3 passes. We'll have ideas from others. I always think you should have adjustment ideas. You have this kind of menu of adjustments. I put it on the back of the call sheet. That's like, here's all of the adjustments that we've made in the past. Here's things that we did, and they become available to you, and that list grows. But it's just on the back, and it's like, okay, they're beating us with an inside run, or they're beating us with an off tackle read. Here's something we did 3 weeks ago. All right, guys, let's draw this up real quick. Let's remember. And again, let's not draw this up. It's something that they did before that I could use as an in-game adjustment, because we've done it before. And once I remind them, we could actually probably use it. So then we come up with those 3 And then we look at them and we say, what are 3 ways that we can defend this formation? What are the 3 ways that we go back to our unbalanced episode? What are 3 ways that we can adjust to unbalance? We talked about there's 5 ways. What are 3 ways that we could actually use in this game? Okay, we got adjustment 1, adjustment 2, adjustment 3 for that unbalanced formation. They go into a trips formation. We've got trips adjustment 1, trips adjustment 2, trips adjustment 3. They run zone read, and we feel like they're going to run zone read this play. We've got way to defend zone read 1, way to defend zone read 2, way to defend zone read 3, way to defend power read 1, way to defend power read 2, way to defend power read 3. And usually we're talking about the 3 levels of play calling. So we've got our base. We've got a movement call, which could be a stunt or it could be a base. I would categorize base blitzes in there as well to an extent. We can change our front. We can use a stunt, things that we're still running a pretty bland coverage, a 3 under 3 deep, or we're running our cover 3, or we're running our cover 1, or if you're a base split field coverage, you're running your base split field coverage. And then you have a third way that's more aggressive. So, I want to smoke strong X, smoke weak X, and bring a blitz off the edge and run a cover 0 behind it. Or I want to run tiger front, tiger cat blitz, or whatever I want to run. And I can be a little bit more aggressive on that in that situation. So, and that's what we teach in the defensive play caller system is 3 levels of play calling. So essentially I find the things that you do well, I come up with 3 ways to defend them. Most likely some of those are going to be transferable. In other words, I'm not going to have 9 ways to defend you.
Right.
9 calls. I'm probably going to use base on all 3 of them, right? So if I have your 3 top plays, even if I have a special alignment or a special stunt and a special blitz for each one of those calls, that's 6 calls, and then base, I've got 7 calls. Then I put in your 3 pass plays and I adjust how I want to attack on passing downs. That might be a blitz to attack your protection. That might be a coverage adjustment or a coverage tweak. It might be our base coverage. I mean, ultimately, you're looking at, max 14 or 15 play calls, most of which you can probably easily cut that down to 10 to 12 play calls, and that's your call sheet.
Right.
So, and you have some tricks up your sleeve and you have that you could use, and you have your goal line stuff that you need to work. But at the end of the day, like, that's your call sheet. And so now you have a call sheet with 80 calls on it, and I have a note card. And that's, if I was new to a defense, if I was new to running a defense, or if I have a defensive coordinator who's new to running our defense, that's what they're going to get as a call sheet. 10 calls. That's it.
I think where I would want to start with game planning, especially against these read option teams, is understanding where my weakness is. So we talk about 4-2-5, cover 3. It's where we all want to kind of run, and that puts we get a weakness on the backside, right? Or excuse me, in split field, not necessarily cover 3. You have a guy there. You start going split field, start going cover 1. We don't have a big answer to that weak side flat. And so we said it last week. The number one way as an offensive coordinator that I want to check your trips check is I want to run speedo to the weak side, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so having an answer there, and I think that better be one of your 3 ways, is taking that weakness away and putting it somewhere else. You can't get rid of it. Every coverage has its weakness. So I want to take it and transfer it somewhere else. So if they're a super, a read option run team, maybe you just want to be cover 2 and leave a corner out there to handle that pitch man or that read option play. So it could just be another very base, easy to install coverage. It might be adjusting by overloading, right? We talked about unbalanced offenses. So now maybe we need to check our defense and be a little bit unbalanced. Where can we eliminate a player that's not going to kill us in the run game? We can stay, gap sound, but we have an extra hat out here just in case. And then the third way that I kind of think about it is, well, a couple ways actually. Number one, I want to find whatever player is making that play go. So if that's an offensive tackle that is absolutely getting out there and crushing a backer because they're leaving that end alone, how can I confuse his reads? How can I keep him at the line of scrimmage? That way my wheel's not going to get trapped inside. So take away whoever their anchor player is. If it's truly the quarterback, then just make him hand it off. But if the quarterback's not that good of a guy, he's just getting a lot of yards because everything's blocked up so well, then I want to take away whatever that good blocking is with different line. That A gap, double mug, A gap thing is, a lot of people are running complete off or defenses out of it. And it does throw off an offensive line. There's 5 of us. We have all these rules for there being 5 of us. And now there's 6 defenders. So being able to do that and then bail out of it, just small adjustments. We haven't changed our 4-2-5. We're just changing our alignment a little bit. And then the last thing is I started studying last year into like the even and odd spacing versus even and odd alignment and all that stuff, right? 7, 8, 9-man spacing. And so it could be worth your time now to kind of delve into that and figure out how can I get right back to my 4-2-5 base fits, but throw off the alignment completely. So how can I, and Joe, your 3-4 system does it perfectly because that's all we're doing. We're still getting back to generally an underfront into like a cover 3, but we're doing it with this extra backer. So we're going to bring that 4th guy from the outside one way or the other. So how can I do that without having to tell the kids, hey, we're installing the 3-4 this week? Maybe my defensive end can just be a wide alignment. He understands he's still that C-gap player, but the offense is like, who the hell do we read now? Because my read key is now 3 yards from the line of scrimmage. Okay, so once again, I've dictated. I know that my kids know we're getting back to our base stuff, but we're just going to throw off that look. So I guess it kind of goes back into my first point about, just changing your alignment. So
Yeah.
I think that's some ways to do to mess with that read. I think it all comes back to just taking the read away, though, right? Either making him do it one way or the other, but we're going to force you to make a read, act on that read, and then we're going to make you wrong.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it comes down to numbers and leverage and angles and where you put your guys. And of course, you want 6 and 5, 5 and 6, 7 and 3, or 7 and 4. How do you want to adjust the numbers? Is going to those are the things that are going to make your defense work. And so when we talk about your base call, and then we talk about movement calls where we've got disguise and we've got change of fronts and we've got change up, defensive line movements, and that's where a lot of what you're saying. The way that we installed the 3-4 defense, and we originally installed the 3-4 front, we had we had 3 games left, and we had 2 zone read teams, 2 vastly different zone read teams, the worst team on our schedule and the best team on our schedule. I now coach for the school that was the worst team. When I say this program was not good, this program was not good. We installed the 3-4 front. It was 2014. And we installed the 3-4 front by walking out of practice, and we said we got to have a better way to defend zone read because the team that was the last game of the season was really good. And I will say that This did not work because athletically, the numbers were right, but athletically he won all the one-on-ones. We walked out. We said, okay, line up in the 4-2, line up in our base front, 4-2, cover 1. And we said defensive linemen all slide over a half man. So we went from a 3 slide a half man strong. So the weak side 5 tech went to a 4. The weak side 1 tech went to a 0. The strong side 3 tech went to a 4. And then I said, all right, on the snap, go back where you were. And we called it aim because we already had the aim stunt in.
Right.
And then we told the strong end to just stand up. And at that time, what we told him to do was go to the side that the running back is on. And that was the stud front. We said, you're the stud. No, we took our regular defensive end out. We put a backup strong safety in, who's a really good football player, very small. If they had blocked him, he's dead, but they were going to read him. And he lined up in the stud front on the side that the back was, which is the side that the quarterback will be coming out to, is a basic zone read. And he stood. And if the back came to him, he tackled him. If the back went away, he squatted to play quarterback. That was his rule. So it was if you ran speed option, he was going to tackle the running back, and the other 5 guys were responsible for quarterback. If he ran, and that was the only thing I think you could do that out of, or if he could lead block you or whatever. And he was going to spill, so he was going to attack inside half. And nothing else changed, and it's exactly what you said. We didn't run anything else out of the 3-4 front that game. Initially, we ran. It was a stud tag with an aim stunt. And that was how we installed the 3-4. So it's very simple to install a different look. If you want to install a different look, that's how you do it very simply, very easily to give a different look.
I think that's the benefit of systems. When you get into these option plays, when you get into these offenses that move and bounce and jump and motions and shifts and trades, your system needs to be able to handle it. And if you can't do what Joe just said, if I can't look at my paper or my whiteboard and 3 people move, and now I've answered this ridiculous problem I'm having, then your system might be broken. If you're a 4-front guy, you need to understand what a 3-front looks like and how you can use it to your advantage. I mean, there's a reason why so many people use it. I am a 4-front guy, but I know that we have to be able to use that 3-front at times. So if you don't have a system that can handle that, you might want to consider a new system.
Yep.
Specifically,
and then we had to decide, and we eventually did. If you did flop the back, do we want to bring the weak safety down, and he becomes the stud? And because we could rotate those guys, we could do that.
Right.
We could bring the free safety over. We could rock again. The stud was a backup strong safety, so he could rock back, and my strong safety could go to the middle of the field, and I could play cover 3, or I could play cover 1 if I wanted to. But we had to decide: is that worth it? We flop the back, or do I just play it because the end was still slanting out? So we just told the end when he slants out that he swats.
Right.
And we Q tag him if the back flipped, and we would just make a Q tag to the end if the back flipped. So it's just problem solving. And again, then they make an adjustment and we make an adjustment back and forth.
I love football. It's the best sport
Fun
in the world.
stuff.
It is fun. All right, man. We checked all the boxes. We talked about the quarterback read plays and how we plan to stop it. And now, I'll go into the offensive side in my brain and be like, now how can I take those things away? So that's great. The game goes on. One last time, let's pay the bills.
Go to JoeDanielFootball.com. Check out JoeDanielFootball.com/rules. 40 Coach Simple rules that'll win you a football game. Tips, tricks, tactics, strategies that you can apply right now to your football team. Again, Coach Simple philosophy, ask a leverage principle. There are the non-negotiables for each position that I think are critical. So check it out. Go to JoeDanielFootball.com/rules.
Awesome. ChamberlainFootballConsulting.com or Patreon.com/Chamberlain Football Consulting, I think. That's the only really things I'm super selling. Go to YouTube. I'm on there. Social media wise, you find me at YouTube where I'm just posting live videos. I'll get to maybe someday doing some actual videos. I don't know. You find me on Twitter at Coach Chambo OK. And then, of course, you can always email me at ChamberlainFootballConsulting@gmail.com. It's very long the first time you email me, and then it will just pop up because that's
how it works.
The beauty of email.
How it works.
Where are you at on social media?
I'm at Football Info on Twitter. I am at Joe Daniel Football on Instagram, TikTok. Email Joe at JoeDanielFootball.com. Although you're going to have a much better chance to get me if you are in the Chalkboard Forum and JDFB Premium Coaching Systems. So Facebook.com/Joe Daniel Football and JoeDanielFootball.com/YouTube.
Excellent. Podcast is at the FBCP on Twitter. And then, of course, everywhere that Joe posts, you see lots of the podcast. If it's your first time listening to the Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Find us on your favorite podcatcher. Spotify, Apple Podcasts can be the biggest two. If you've been listening for a while, please leave us reviews so other coaches can find us too. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.